Yesterday, I wrote about how, for decades, South Africa has been systematically and slowly destroyed, economically, institutionally and socially. Some people asked me what the final stage of this systematic decline actually looks like. The answer is not dramatic at all. In fact, it's very familiar. The South Africa that people dreamed of building in 1990 has been slowly collapsing into a permanently unstable, low-trust society where the majority lives in informal, precarious economies while a tiny elite enjoys the best first-world comfort behind gates, walls and non-disclosure agreements. Because of this, South Africa's final destination is a slow decomposition into a neo-colonial stagnation where democracy is just theater and governance is extraction. It staggers on in its final, decomposed form, dead but animated. There will be no civil war, no tanks on the Union Building lawn and no international intervention. Instead, the state will remain standing in name, but its core is gone. Hollowed out, privatized and captured. In its moribund state, the country doesn't fall off a cliff, it fades into an endless stagnation where the majority survive in crisis mode, while a fortunate minority retreats into fortified luxury. The government exists, but only on paper. Ministries have coats of arms, officials wear suits and legislation is passed, but the state's ability to govern is only ceremonial. Basic services like electricity, water and sanitation are either unavailable or outsourced to the highest bidder. Access depends on your income, not your citizenship. The public sector no longer serves the public. It functions as a patronage machine, jobs for allies, contracts for cronies, black or white. Law enforcement reflects this rot, absent in poor communities, hyperactive in guarding elite estates. Police are no longer providers of safety, but instruments of control. Violence is selectively applied and rights are selectively protected. When South Africa reaches its terminal phase, the formal economy shrinks year by year, while corporate monopolies grow fatter. The mining houses, banks and retailers consolidate power, tightening their grip on the country's wealth. These giants don't invest, they extract. For ordinary South Africans, the economy becomes informal by necessity. Spaza shops, street vending, car guarding, hair salons, YouTube channels, podcasts, these are no longer side hustles but primary incomes. The youth aren't looking for jobs. They're looking for ways to survive. When South Africa reaches its final skeletal form, unemployment is no longer seen as a policy failure. It's just the way things are. The rand limps along, offering neither collapse nor confidence as capital continues its quiet exit. When South Africa meets its zombie end, there will be no social contract to speak of, as Tito Mboweni once pointed out. Those with the means build private worlds within the failing one, off-grid electricity, borehole water, private security, private health, and private education. The country balkanizes. Gated communities become the new municipalities. Inside, order, lights, lawns. Outside, crime, darkness, dust. Wealthy suburbs run as de facto city-states, Stein City, Waterfall, Val Divai, Century City, Zimbali, and Crossways. The middle class, once aspirational, is now precarious. Europe is collapsing and becoming unaffordable, therefore, the middle class cannot emigrate, so it joins the gated survivalism. For the poor, survival depends on self-organization. Communities set up their own policing and water access. The state's only visible role is the occasional raid or social grant. Even that is less about care and more about control, to pacify, not empower. The result is a country splintered into economic city-states and abandoned zones. Unity dissolves into archipelagos of wealth and islands of abandonment. Elections continue, and parties campaign. There are manifestos, debates, and ballot boxes. But it's all theater. Nothing fundamental changes. Opposition parties play their parts, some shout about land, others promise better spreadsheets, but none challenge the basic architecture of economic exclusion. In this zombie phase, the government is a glorified distribution network. Coalitions emerge not to offer alternatives but to rebrand the same rot. Voters vote, but fewer believe. The rituals persist, even as their meaning dissolves. Perhaps the most devastating loss is psychological. The anger fades and hope retreats. A kind of national depression sets in. This is just how it is, people say. The post-apartheid dream, the rainbow nation, the developmental state, is replaced by resignation and cynicism. People retreat into narrower identities, tribal pride, class survivalism and religious escape. The youth burn with rage but without a credible movement to direct that rage. There is radical energy but no radical structure. Over time, a slow and invisible defeat settles over the nation. The people do not revolt because the collapse is not dramatic. It is dull, procedural and bureaucratic. There are no defining moments, just a string of small humiliations, increasing prices, dry taps, underpaid municipal workers. The ruling elite don't repress violently, they erode hope gradually. People spend their days chasing food, water, transport, and airtime. There is no time for organizing. Hunger depoliticizes. Amid all this, there remains a layer of society that insists South Africa is just fine. These are the denialists, professionals, technocrats, suburban optimists, business columnists, diplomats, people insulated from collapse by wealth, geography, or ideology. They invoke foreign investment conferences or tourism ads as proof that the fundamentals are strong. They say things like, "We've been through worse," or "They have been saying this for years, but we are still here." They confuse surface continuity with substance. Because there are still malls, elections and Wi-Fi in coffee shops, they assume the center is holding. But what they call resilience is just adaptation to decline. However, in the end, the national mood shifts from anger to resignation. People stop believing in the shared project of South Africa. The rainbow dissolves into survivalism. The future becomes individual, not collective. Look after your own. Yet even as the state decays and public trust collapses, the ruling elite continues to present cartoonish, unserious, and frankly embarrassing individuals as leaders. Ministries are handed to the comically unqualified. Parliament is stocked with the loud and the incoherent. Public appointments feel like punchlines, not policy. This isn't a glitch, it's a feature. By elevating the absurd, the elite accomplishes multiple goals simultaneously. They lower expectations, ensuring that citizens, accustomed to dysfunction and buffoonery, no longer demand competence or vision. At the same time, they humiliate the state itself, turning governance into a joke that justifies outsourcing, privatization and the gradual erosion of public institutions. This theatrical incompetence is not a sign of failure, it is a deliberate smokescreen for elite impunity, contributing to a deeper cultural resignation. People stop believing that the state can be fixed because it no longer even tries to look credible. In this way, governance is reduced to performance art, and behind the clown show, the real business of looting and survival continues. Yet even amid the disillusionment, a portion of the population clings to hope, not through uprising, but through the ballot box. For them, this next election is the one that will do it. They believe a shift in voting patterns will reset the national trajectory, that a change in coalition or leadership will reverse decades of decay. This electoral faith is powerful. It is also tragic. Elections, by now, are a ritual theater, a managed rotation of elite factions, none of whom challenge the economic order. Each party markets itself as a savior, only to manage the decline in slightly different tones: populist, technocratic, nationalist, progressive. South Africa's final stage of decomposition isn't Afghanistan or Somalia. It's something more insidious. A failed state that still holds elections. A democracy where nothing is democratic. A republic with no residential publica. The real power lies with an unelected oligarchy, corporate monopolies, party elites and international capital. The state exists to manage decline and suppress revolt, not to build or serve. South Africa doesn't fall. It fades out. Townships become informal zones governed by extortionist gang bosses or community elders. The state loses its monopoly on violence, not to rebels, but to security firms. Internationally, South Africa is quietly written off. No sanctions, no invasions, just quiet abandonment. From emerging market to cautionary tale. From BRICS member to basket case. So, what is South Africa's final form? Well, ID does not burn. It heats up gradually. And like the frog in the pot, the people don't realize it until it's far too late.
Dr. Kariburam Barabahizi. At Kariburam. April 30th. Bro. At sizwe low. As I was reading your remarkably well-written post, I had a déjà vu feeling. I have seen this before, in Senegal. In just 30 years, parties also quietly died off. From the liberal PDS of vocal Abdoulaye Wade, to the once powerful socialist ruling party PS of French stooge Leopold Senghor, to the Maoist Andy Jeff MRDN of Landing Savané. On their ruins emerged a constellation of self-serving microparties and the current ruling party, PASTEF of Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko, patriotic and Pan-Africanist only in rhetorics, deceitful in practice. The neo-colonial order has developed very efficient and pernicious adaptation strategies. No need to reinvent the wheel. The history of Latin America can also teach us one or two lessons about our inevitable fate. Now I believe we still have a choice. 1. As an individual colonial state, either the Burkina Faso path or the Senegal path. 2. Africa as one political entity of several states, either the difficult and costly but rewarding China glorious way or the easy and fatalistic Latin America long agony and descent into the abyss.
So, what do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and let's keep this story alive. Until next time, remember, our struggle has always been about the land.
The most important person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda of an entire generation to come. Steve Jobs.